Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Infuse Your Future podcast. This is your host, Dr. C. And real quick, before we get into the episode, I just want to circle back to, as a follow up from the last podcast, which was Progress Over Perfection, because it was so funny. As I was getting ready to publish the podcast, they had an option to put a poll in there, and I thought, well, that's pretty cool. So I thought of a poll and I stuck it up there, and the second I hit publish, the poll was over. So literally nobody got a chance to answer the poll. I decided not to tinker around with it and delete it because I figured people could still read it and think in their head what they would have answered. Um, and I will try to play with it today when I publish this episode to see if I can figure out how to leave it open-ended. But I just thought it was so funny. It was progress over perfection. And then I had this dead poll when I published. Anyway, back to today's episode. It's episode 3. We're there already. So today what I'm going to talk about is something called a seat at the table. Now, I think most of us know what a seat at the table is, but just in case you don't, I'll define it as just someone who is successful, who has the ability to affect change in their lives, people who have a say in important matters. Basically, a seat at the table is a symbol of power. It gives a person influence and opportunity so that they can be heard and make a difference. So last November, I attended a conference. It was called HCI Live. And there I had the opportunity to talk to one of the co-founders, and we had a conversation. And during this conversation, she asked me about my inner critic and said, "Hey, what's your inner critic telling you?" So my inner critic was very honest and said, "Well, I don't belong at the table." And she laughed. We were actually in front of a whole group of people. I was being interviewed. It was a coaching session. So she laughed and she said, "Belong at whose table?" And she just looked out in the audience and picked a random number, tried to find the table I walked in from. And she said, "Is it table 49? Can you belong to that table?" And of course I laughed back. I mean, obviously I belong at table 49. That's a no-brainer. So her next question really intrigued me. And she said, "So you're saying that you're comfortable sitting at table 49 because they're not successful?" So I've been thinking about this ever since. I did have a seat at the table of success. It was table 49. Those were all great people. They were successful in their own right. So this was so simple and so true. And the truth is, we all have a seat at the table, the most important table, our own table. The question really is, how do we show up at our table? How do we show up in our own lives? How do we make our table successful? So basically, each one of us can ask ourselves, how can I show up for myself every day? How do I make decisions about my own health? Most of us are very fortunate that we have plenty of food. I mean, in the US, there's food everywhere. And it's the job of food companies to make you really enjoy it. And so they throw lots of fat and salt and sugar in it. Oh my God, it's delicious and it's everywhere. It's plentiful. And the unhealthier it is, oftentimes the cheaper it is. But at the end of the day, we're the ones that make the decision on whether to eat it or not. It may not be easy, but that's the bottom line. We make decisions about our own health. So we have to ask ourselves, how do I make decisions about my own health? How kind am I to myself? Most of our heads are full of so much negative self-talk. Our society, this is how our society is these days. I don't know if it's been like this since the beginning of time, but people don't talk to each other kindly. But the one thing that we can control is how we talk to other people and how we talk to ourselves. So we can ask ourselves, am I talking kindly to myself? That's quite influential in your life. We can ask ourselves, how do I value my time and money? Am I spending it on little trinkets that have no value? Or am I spending it on solid things that will help improve my life, my family's life, the life of my community? How do I nurture myself and others? Am I giving myself breaks? Am I giving others breaks? Do I forgive myself? Do I forgive other people? The list goes on and on. And probably one of the bigger questions that we can ask ourselves as a powerful person sitting at our own table is, how do I heal my own wounds? And how do I address my own demons? Every one of us have good and bad qualities. Every one of us have hurt someone else intentionally or unintentionally. It doesn't matter. We've all said something stupid to someone or said something mean to someone, and oftentimes it's the people closest to us, right? We don't say nice things to them sometimes. And pretty much everybody in the world has old wounds. So have we tried to heal them, or are we being a victim? If we're walking around life being a victim, then we're just going to be in this constant cycle of negativity, you know? But what we but what we can influence is how we take care of that, how we heal our own wounds, find the right support networks, find the right person to talk to, forgive people, forgive ourselves. So anyway, as most humans would do, I started contemplating my own life after this discussion. I've struggled with depression pretty much my entire life, and depression ultimately can rob our memories of any value we've brought to the world. So as I sat and thought about it, I've been at the table of success in the world a lot. I was president of my surgery club in medical school. I was the PTA president when my kids were in elementary school. I coached a champion U10 soccer team on AYSO, and I really didn't know anything about soccer. They just needed a coach. I had a seat at the table as a doctor, as a mom. But you know what? More importantly, I was at the table every time I helped a friend get through a lousy moment. Every time I showed up for my family. Every time I smiled and said something kind to someone. Those were ultimately the most important times that I was influential. Every single person who gets up every day and shows up in the world handles their business, smiles, laughs, and just in general helps people. Every parent who lovingly cares for their children, every mental health professional who guides someone to a brighter life. Every doctor that helps a patient, every soldier who defends the freedom of others, every teacher who helps a child's confidence. And frankly, every plumber who cleans our pipes and gets our toilets to flush again. And of course, every garbage man that gets rid of our trash. We're all sitting at the table, what I call, we're all sitting at the table of success, what I call table 49. But here's an important question. What are we doing at our table? Are we dining on fine food and engaging in others in deep conversation? Or are we eating fried Twinkies and shooting spitballs at another table? Do we use our power and influence over our own lives to dish out love or hatred, compassion or violence? Are we living bravely or in fear? So basically, what I realized from this great conversation is that she's exactly right. We all have a seat at the table, and I'm calling it table 49. Because at the end of the day, it's not where we're sitting, it's what we do with it. It's what we order from the menu, it's the type of conversations we have. So I'm going to leave you with this question. What are you doing at your table? How are you showing up and being a positive influence in your life and in the world? And I just want to add that this doesn't have to be some grand gesture. Recently, both of my kids came to me and they seemed stressed out because they didn't know how they were going to save the world. And I don't remember the exact conversation, and it would probably bore you guys anyway. But the funny thing is, I've spent my entire life thinking that I have to change the world. And a few months back, my therapist even asked me, why do you think you have to change the world? And I've been thinking about that too ever since. And I guess, I don't know where the concept came from. I guess, I feel like we're surrounded by these messages in our society, save the planet, save the world, save the oceans. This species is going to go extinct if we don't act. And I'm not saying that that's not important. I mean, we do need to create a sustainable future. We do need to monitor, what we're doing in the world. It doesn't hurt to try to be cognizant of our carbon footprint and all these other things. But at the end of the day, it's true. Every single one of us is a human being. And we don't have to save the world, the entire world ourselves. We don't have to be Superman and Wonder Woman and just constantly be outsourced. If we really want to save the world, we need to focus on ourselves, focus on our own lives, get our own lives under control. And so, because I had been thinking of that, and because I had been coming up with answers for myself, when my kids asked this question, and my heart sank, because, oh my gosh, I don't want them to spend the next 40, 50, 80 years of their life stressing because they have to save this world that's falling apart constantly. And in a world where the news channels constantly remind us that it's falling apart. So basically, it opened up the opportunity for me to let them know they don't have to save the world. They don't have to have that pressure on their shoulders. That doesn't mean that they're not going to have a huge positive impact on the world. I truly believe that people should do the best that they can. And when their own life is under control and doing well, to go out and help other people. I'm a big proponent of helping other people. But I just want to remind people that you have a seat at the table in your own life, in your own body, in your own mind. And you can use the power and influence that you have over yourself and your own decisions to show up as a powerful, positive person in the world. So anyway, I hope you guys found some value in this podcast. I had fun writing it and talking about it. Again, if you like this episode or you just want to support my journey in general, please share this with your friends and family. And be sure to leave a comment below if you'd like to get the discussion rolling, or if you have any ideas of things you'd like to hear on upcoming episodes. And if you want to make sure you don't miss future episodes, click the follow button. So great talking to you guys. Have a great day, and I'll see you at the next podcast.